Can you breathe fire?
No, I've been stuck.
In this teapot for 1,000 years. So the sooner we can get this over with, the better.
So, The Wish Dragon. It's the latest Sony animation animated feature film. So this movie is about this kid named Din who gets this teapot that has a magical wish dragon in it who grants him or gives him 3 wishes, so pretty much the typical genie plot. And Din wants to use his wishes essentially to reconnect with his childhood best friend, Lena, who he hasn't seen in several years because her dad started a big business and it took off, and so she moved off to, the rich high society type life while he stayed poor and, living with his single mom. So that's essentially a plot of this movie. It's Din trying to reconnect with his friend, trying to use the magic, because essentially they're from 2 worlds now. You have she's from the rich upper class and he's just a poor average person. This is the second Sony animated movie to come on Netflix. We're gonna get a 3rd one later this year, Vivo, because I guess Netflix made a good deal with Sony and they got their animated movies. So this movie, like I said, it's the typical genie story, and it's hard not to compare it to Aladdin. They're very different movies. They do different things with the story plot, but they still have a lot of the same elements, and I think it's going to be compared to Aladdin because of that, which isn't a bad thing. Aladdin's a good movie, and it's not like you can't take the same story or story idea and make something completely different, and I think they do a well enough job to make it seem different so it doesn't just seem like Aladdin. So one of the things I like about this movie is Long, the Wish Dragon, essentially the genie. They gave him a little bit more depth than they did the genie in Aladdin. I mean, his name is Long, not just Genie, The genie doesn't even have a name in Aladdin. So they give him a backstory, and it's very interesting, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. One of the things I didn't like is, like I said, Din is trying to use his wishes to reconnect with his old friend. And I like that they're going with the friend aspect. It isn't just him in love with this girl and trying to, fall in love and get together with her. But I think they fail a little bit in that aspect, in that it does kind of feel romantic at times, not just a friendship. They're like, let's go on a date. And like, it's not like, hey, let's hang out. I miss you. And I don't think they really give a good reason of why he wants to reconnect with his good friend. I know they were best friends when they were little, but I think it's been like 10 years since they saw each other, and I wish there was a little bit more motivation there. If he was just like, well, no one has ever connected to me like she has, and we're just like, I need that good person in my life because it's something, I really need right now because maybe he lost his mom or something. Something very interesting to really push the plot forward, but I can understand trying to reconnect with an old friend, but it just kind of seems a little off. I do like the main theme of this story, which, like, again, similar to Aladdin, but I think this movie does it a little bit better, where it's just like, it doesn't matter about being rich or famous or having power or whatever. Those aren't important in life. The things that are important in our life are friends, family, the simple things. Yeah, you can have a lot of money and a lot of power, but that doesn't necessarily bring you happiness. In the long run, it doesn't really get you anywhere. So I kind of like that. They handled it fairly well in this movie, so I really appreciate it. Overall, this movie was good. I really enjoyed it. I felt like it could have been better in some parts. I'm going to talk spoilers a little bit later to explain some of the things that I really didn't care about it, that, go in better detail. But overall, it was a good movie. It was a decently animated. It's not as good. The animation isn't as creative and cool like Mitchell's vs. the Machines or Into the Spider-Verse. I think Sony's 2 best animated features. But it does a really good job. There's a lot of cool scenes in here that I really enjoy. And it's definitely a lot of fun. And I would recommend seeing it. I give this movie a 7 out of 10. It's good. It's solid. I enjoyed it, but I feel like it has a lot more flaws than some other movies. The emotional parts don't necessarily click at times, and I feel like even though I like how they handled the lesson of this story, it kind of falters at the end, which is one of my issues, and I'm going to talk about that in spoilers. So 7 out of 10. If you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix. Go check it out. It's good for animation fans to see Sony's catalog, and I like they're doing things a little bit different and branching out and making more movies. So, okay, I'm going to talk spoilers. So, 3, 2, 1, if you haven't seen it, spoilers. So, throughout the movie, there's these bad guys chasing Din, trying to get the lamp, or not the lamp back, the teapot back. And, it's obvious that they're not the main bad guys because, we're shown early on that they're working for someone. And it's supposed to be a surprise that the person they're working for is Lena's dad. And he's really the main bad guy, even though at the end, they kind of just throw that away because the main evil thug guy gets the teapot, and he starts making wishes. Like, he makes his hand golden to turn things into gold. And it's like this big chase fight scene to try to get the teapot between him and Din at the end of the movie. And he ends up dying, like, pretty horrifically, which happens in a lot of kids' movies. He turns himself into gold, and then they're, like, high up in the sky, and he hits a bridge, and he just shatters, and they're like, oh, shit. But I think the main bad guy was Lena's dad, and he doesn't really get punished in this movie. He dies, but Din uses his last wish to bring him back, which is kind of shitty. Like, oh, he didn't learn a lesson or anything. He really doesn't learn a lesson. So, like I said, I like Long and his backstory. And his backstory was that he was this emperor-ish person who was really rich, and he's like, I learned early on that, gold was power, money was power. So I when I got older, I did a bunch of, like, he married off his daughters to rich families so he could get money. He sent off his son to conquer and steal, and, like, they show a flashback, and he just didn't care. Like, his son comes back dead, and he's just like, whatever. He was like, I was happy and beloved and blah, 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 but he was horrible, just a horrible person to his people. And he's like, I died alone, and it's like, I was waiting for, my people to come and celebrate me and everything, but no one came. And then, so when he dies, he gets punished, and he could turn into a wish dragon. And a wish dragon has to grant, or have 10 masters before he can go to heaven. And at the end of the movie, he gets turned to gold by the evil guy, and so he dies and he goes back to heaven. They're like, oh, congratulations, you fulfilled your thing, you can come into heaven. And he's like, that's it? And he's like, yeah, but he decides to go back to the real world and become a wish dragon to help Din out, because he's like, my friend is in trouble, I need to help him, or whatever. And I felt like this, like, him getting into heaven or whatever should have been a test where he's just like, okay, we were testing you to see if you were going to do the right thing. And after he granted Din's last wish, they would let him go back into heaven. But he essentially gets punished for going back to Earth. So he has to get 10 more masters before he can get back to heaven, which is kind of shitty. It's like, dude, you learned your lesson. Like, he kind of learns that, not to value money and, what's important in life throughout the movie. But, like, that should have been his main task, where he's just like, oh, we're going to give you everything you ever wanted. But he decides that, no, I'm going to toss it away and do the right thing. But apparently that wasn't a lesson, and he just gets punished. Like, he just had to do granted, have 10 masters, and boom, you're done. Which, yeah, kind of loses the message. It's like, you get punished for doing the right thing. That's shitty. And like I said, it's the same thing with the dad. The dad comes back to life, and he loses all his business, has gone bankrupt, and he's poor or whatever again. And at the end of the movie, they go back to this apartment, and the mom feeds him food, and he's like, oh, this is the best soup ever, which, like, they didn't mention how good the soup was. So he ends up starting a new business, and that's where the movie essentially ends, where they have this big new restaurant, and Lena is working there, and Din's working there, and Din's mom's working there, and Lena's dad is working there, and I'm just like, that's... So he didn't learn his lesson. Like, instead of just, working with, having or being happy with what you have, family and friends and whatnot, he's just like, he's starting or trying to start a big new business. So I thought that was dumb. So those were some of the main issues I had with this movie. I'm just like, they kind of they mess up that ending. I'm just like, I wasn't happy with it. Like, Din finds Long's teapot at the end of the movie. He's like, oh, you're back, and he gives him a hug or whatever, but then he just sends him on his way. Like, again, I thought he was going to be like, well, I wish you can go to heaven and live your afterlife or whatever. But no, it's just like, okay, I don't know if they're setting up for sequels or whatever, but I just felt like the message gets muffled at the end when the dad doesn't learn his lesson and Long seems to get punished. But overall, it was a decent movie. Maybe I'm nitpicking or maybe people don't notice that stuff, but those are things that bug me about this movie. So, that's it. Wish Dragon, which I kept thinking was called Luck Dragon for some reason, so if I said Luck Dragon in this movie, I meant Wish Dragon, or review. So Wish Dragon. So that's Wish Dragon, another Sony movie. I thought it was good. It was a good, decent movie. I think Sony's catalog is, really, really improving. They have bad movies, not as bad as people like to say, like, oh, Sony sucks. But they've had bad movies, but lately I think they've been on a good streak. Into the Spider-Verse, Angry Birds 2, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and not this. That's like 4 movies in a row that I really thought they were good. And we'll see how Vivo does when it comes out on Netflix later this year. So, alright, if you watched this movie, what did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you have issues with it like I did? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace out.